So it's now day 12 since I started this journey, and I haven't started every day, I can tell you that. But I've been trying to be consistent, which is one of the keys to learning a language or to learning anything, right? I said I would share my strategy, and first of all, I'm not that kind of person that just sits down and strategizes from beginning to end because I can't. But I do have a pretty clear idea of what I want to do because I'm not a prodigy polyglot, but I still speak 7 languages and counting. So I have a fairly good idea of how somebody should go about learning a language, or in the very least, how I learn a language. And if you're anything like me, then I really hope you can take advantage of this because that's what I'm doing this playlist for. So the first step I've taken was that of obviously looking for any free material that's online. For those of you who don't know me, I began with English when I was 7, and then I took German at 11 and then Spanish at 17. But it was all within the context of my schooling. So I just learned these languages as school subjects. Luckily I liked them, but I got my assignments and I was just doing it because it was what I was supposed to do. French and Portuguese I never studied, but I acquired them, and I do have a predisposition, so I never quite struggled with learning a language. Still, I wish I had known then what I'm going to share with you because it does help. 2 things that I find myself telling my students very, very often are that learning a language is 1/3 neurology, 1/3 physiology, and 1/3 psychology. So neurology means that if you're missing the tip of your tongue, if you're missing your front teeth, you can't naturally say certain sounds and you will be incapacitated or at a disadvantage. So that's there. It could be your case or not. Psychology means that a lot of people want to know everything there is to know about a language before they say the first word. It's just that kind of sense of security that they want to have. And it may work for them, or it may not work for others, or it may not even work for them, because I have had a lot of engineers who knew all the ins and outs of all the tenses and all the conjugations, and they could not answer me if I would just ask them, how are you? So you should know that any technique, any strategy, any method could come to your advantage or not. You just need to find your own. There's no one size fits all, and that's why, not to toot my own horn, but there's nothing like a one-to-one teacher, because you do need that living element that can choose the method for you or a combination of methods and work in response to the feedback that you give these teachers, and they can see, oh, he learns better that way or this way. Because a lot of people don't have a clue how they learn best. So a language is a living element. That's something that a lot of people also overlook. It's a living element. It's not just a set of rules that you just apply. There are probably as many exceptions, some languages more than others. So you really need to have a feeling, and you need a person, maybe not native, but somebody who has a feeling for that language and how everything applies in the right way, if it does. Psychology also means that you may be a self-starter, or you may be somebody who needs a teacher, who gives you assignments, who tells you what to do, who kind of keeps prodding you, because again, because of your psychology, you may not be motivated to study what you want to learn yourself. So that's something that you might want to figure out before you embark on any sort of journey like this. And finally, neurology means that your brain literally needs to learn how to put your tongue, your lips, how to move your jaw in such a way as to produce sounds it's never produced before. It's something that when you were a toddler, you just acquired it because you were acquiring everything at that age. But now as an adult, you don't quite understand how to make certain sounds. Your ears don't perceive. For example, let's take Italian, which is what I teach the most. Many people don't hear the difference between fatto and fatto. They say them the same way. And to an Italian, to a Japanese or a Finnish, there's a very clear distinction between fatto, fatto, pala, palla. And that's just a way of telling your brain what to focus on, because they just hear f, ah, t, o, and they don't hear them. What I'm talking about is the difference in the intensity of the T, fatto, fatto. There's actually 3 things I tell my students all the time. One is this, 1/3 physiology, 1/3 psychology, 1/3 neurology, so you might want to sort that out, kind of know that that is there. Another thing I say, that learning a language, as well as learning anything, happens with familiarity that is acquired through exposure. So there's something to be said about Bart Simpson writing the same sentence over and over and over, because the more you become exposed to something, the more it becomes familiar. And it's the same process of liking a song because you recognize the refrain. You're like, I know that the song is going to go that way now, so I can sing along, I can make it mine, it's familiar, I like it. And it gets absorbed by the brain. It becomes part of you. So you need to make a language part of you. You need to like it, find the fun in it, and it'll make your learning a lot faster. So like I was saying, as far as Bart Simpson and the old school, there's something to be said about repeating something over and over and over, or make an exercise where 90% of the sentence is the same, but you just change that one word, and the rule sinks further and further in. I know there's a lot of methods out there, a lot of like, our method is the best and it's totally innovative, it's not old school, you just get speaking right away. Well, that kind of leads me to another point that personally, I think the best approach is to learn from many sources, because that one book will emphasize a certain aspect, will have a certain register of vocabulary and focus, but then that application will present the same points, the same language, the same grammar from another point of view, and then you have the living teacher who will tell you, well, who will probably harmonize both sources, or who will make them all come alive. And that's how you learn. Like I said, you're a person, you have feelings and emotions, and there's the right time to learn something. And it's just about making the language pop, become alive, and you get that aha moment. So I warmly advise that you learn from many sources, not just find one method, one book. Another piece of advice, I know I started with 2, but now I'm like at what, 4? Another piece of advice is don't learn. Stop trying to learn. So let's crack down on what I'm actually doing with Turkish. Just yesterday, I was learning from a website, because part of my strategy is to clearly start from what's free. There's so much available on the internet. And like I said, compared to my school days when it was just through the school, through that teacher, and you had to be lucky or not. Now with the internet, you have access to like half a dozen websites that will teach you in every which way the method that they think is the best. So clearly I'm checking them all out. They're free. It's just about choosing and making time for it. So yesterday I was looking at this website that was telling you, easy phrases and verbs and vowel harmony in the case of Turkish, which is what I'm learning right now. And there was part of me, like the student in me, the schoolboy, who was saying, oh, I need to memorize this. I need to make notes of the names of animals. There were all kinds of lists and categories and stuff. But then the wiser part of me, the one that is strong with the experience of having learned 7 languages every which way, told me, no, just read it, just go through it, and something will sink in. You'll see that the next time around, when you go back to lesson 1, everything will be that much more familiar. And what I said before, your brain will have pre-digested. You'll be like, oh, that's a familiar word, and that's a familiar word. Because I see and I hear many of my students are like, how am I possibly going to memorize all this, all these rules, all these applications of the rules? Don't. I'll tell you an example. There is a girl on YouTube that before Turkish, I thought I was going to learn Arabic because I wanted to go to Lebanon on vacation, and my language learning sprees are always connected to my vacation. So I want to go to Istanbul. I made a whole video about that. But before I wanted to learn Arabic, so I was checking out this girl who is from Jerusalem, I think. She lives in Italy now. And the very first video she made was just her saying the camel on a piece of paper, showing it to the camera. And then maybe later on she was saying how of the camel is done in this way. I don't remember. But she did say that Jamal means camel. So in the next lesson she was saying of the camel is something Jamal. Well, guess what I retained? That Jamal means camel. Now I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but something will always, make your brain like Velcro. Something will always stick in, and it'll come useful sooner or later. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm probably going to stop here. So summing up, know that a language is 1/3 physiology, 1/3 psychology, and 1/3 neurology, so that you don't get too frustrated. Just try to get an idea of what you're embarking on. Second thing is learn from many sources and take advantage of the combination of these sources. Third piece of advice is try not to learn. Stop wanting to learn. Just enjoy the ride. Watch all the videos, read all the websites while eating air popcorn. Just enjoy it and just go through it. And resist the temptation of thinking, oh my God, I've gone through the whole course and I haven't learned anything. You weren't expected to learn anything. You were just supposed to get a first impression. I can guarantee you that the second time you start the course over, some things will pop better, more, faster, and you will use those to learn what you haven't learned yet. And be aware that learning a language or anything comes from the familiarity that comes from exposure. Make it familiar, any which way. Is it flashcards? A lot of students ask me, should I do flashcards? I don't know. Does it help you? If it helps you, do it. I had a student that had post-its attached to the whole kitchen. The word for fridge on the fridge, the word for mug on the mug. Maybe it helped him, maybe not. So I'm not one to do flashcards, but I know that I learn a lot through categories. Like I want to know all my colors, I want to know all my animals, I want to know the days of the week, I want to know the numbers, I want to know the months, because I need some wealth of vocabulary to make my sentences with. There are some people that just want to know ready phrases. Excuse me, where's the museum? But then they don't know which word means excuse me, which word means where, which word means the, or maybe that language doesn't have the. And personally, I would feel handicapped not knowing exactly what I'm saying. Bottom line, there's no one method, and we'll be talking about this throughout this whole series, and I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as I am. I'm having the time of my life.